we sometimes forget the season we're in, and we try to rush and force something that if we just give it enough time, everything is in process. I always love giving analogies because in the physical world, things make so much sense. But when it comes to our lives and cyber, we want to make things so complicated. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome, my friends. Here we go. You know what time it is. So good to see you. You know what time it is. It's time. It is time for Life of a CISO with yours truly. Dr. E is in the house. First, just want to check in. How are you doing? How's everything going? Remember, it's not whether you're doing awesome or not. It's just what level of awesome you're at. Or as I like to say when I work one-on-one with my coaching clients, what season are you in? Because what I find happens with a lot of technical people, chief information security officers, and just everybody is we sometimes forget the season we're in, and we try to rush and force something that if we just give it enough time, everything is in process. I always love giving analogies because in the physical world, things make so much sense. But when it comes to our lives and cyber, we want to make things so complicated. But here's the simple reality. If I am in the middle of winter and the ground is frozen and I'm a farmer and I plant seeds, I can't expect them to grow. Right? There's not enough warmth. There's not enough sun. There's not enough moisture. Right? Winter is cold and dry. And fertility with seeds needs warmth, sun, and moisture. So it's the wrong time. I don't care. You could be the best farmer. You could have the best seed. But if you're planting in the wrong season, it will not grow. And that's often the problem. And then we get frustrated. And then instead of accepting that it's winter, what do? We'll go and we'll try to warm up the earth. We'll get heaters. We'll get artificial sun. We'll get water. And we'll try to pretend that it's summer or spring so that the seed will be tricked into growing. And yes, if you really work super hard and you try and put in a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and a lot of money, can a seed grow in winter? Yes, but. It's hard, it's difficult, it's a lot of effort, and it doesn't scale. So just keep reminding yourself that you're a chief officer with a focus on information security. As we go into the new year, I want us to stop using the CISO title. Because the CISO title has been so bastardized and misused and associated with being technical. And the reality is, the role that many CISOs play is not the role that companies need. There's a huge disconnect between what the executives need and what a CISO thinks they need or the role they're playing. So we need to break it. I know sometimes you can repair something mid-flight, but sometimes you got to start from scratch. And I feel like the trust and miscommunication between the executives and the CISO, in many cases, there's a few that are working, but in many cases have been so broken that we need to start from scratch. So what I'm doing is, it's CO CIS. That's your title. COIS. You're a chief officer focused on information security. And I find that gives a different focus, because the focus of a CISO is not primarily on cybersecurity. That's the problem. As a security engineer, and I know, and I struggled with this like many of you do, because here's the reality. I love cybersecurity. I mean, I truly enjoy it and love it. I believe my purpose in life is to secure cyberspace. It's not just a tagline. It's not just something I rattle off. If you really know me and you talk to me, what I'm passionate about, what I love, my purpose, is when we are making the internet a safe place for you to live, work, and raise a family. That's really at my DNA. And here's the trick. If you want to be wildly successful, it's when your purpose and your passion are the same thing. So many people struggle because their purpose and their passion are not aligned. And I'll give you an example. I'm not criticizing here, by the way. I hope you all know I always come from a position of love. So when I give examples, it's to help you understand. It's not to criticize or say you're doing anything wrong. But an example is, I was coaching someone and I just want to understand their life. And they were struggling and they're having a difficult time. And they're like, Eric, I really believe my purpose is to help companies integrate security into the business. That it's integrated into the business. It's not an afterthought. It's not an add-on. It's integrated into the business. And when you talk to this person, I actually connect and believe that is really their purpose. But I look at their life and I'm like, so what are you doing? Like just explain your life to me. And they're explaining to me that they're doing all these things with the kids, but a theme that comes out is, on Monday night, I go shooting with my friends, and then on Thursday, I go and I play pickleball, and then Saturday I go golfing for 5 hours. And you sort of see the theme, and here's the reality. His passion right now is really building and connecting with friends, which, by the way, networking is critical. So there's nothing wrong with that. But the reality is, and when I started asking him is he networking with the right people, or is his passion getting in the way of his purpose? Because here's the reality. Passion has more energy, but purpose has longevity. And I know I'm throwing a lot of awesome stuff at you right now. That one took me a while to recognize. Passion has more energy, but purpose has more longevity. So here's the issue. If you are not fully aware and aligned, short term, your passion will prioritize over your purpose because there's more energy. But over time, that passion will burn out or change, and the purpose is there, and that's what leads to frustration, regret, and disconnect. So nothing wrong with it, but I'll give you a trick here. The more you can get your passion and your purpose to align and eventually become the same. Right now, where I'm at in my life, my passion and my purpose are the same. And I've just owned it. And I've recognized it because I do a lot of interviews and I talk with a lot of folks and I'm in a lot of groups, and everyone always goes, Eric, what do you do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, well, I mean, if I just really want to relax, I'll go in the studio, I'll record some videos, I'll write some blogs. I'll do some work on. No, Eric. You didn't hear our question. What do you do for fun? I'm like, I did. I answered your question. That's what I do for fun. But no, that's your business. I'm like, yes and no. That they're the same, but they're different. Business is more where I'm looking at our clients, our targets, our revenues, our numbers, our growth, our expansion, how to make a bigger impact on the world. How can I make more impact, more money, so I can give back to make a bigger impact? Here's the trick. When you get to the level where making money is not to buy more things, making money is not to fund your lifestyle. That's taken care of. When you start to really get rocket fuel and go orbital is when you get to a point where making money is so you can help more people. Making money is so you can have a bigger impact. Making money is so you can get on bigger stages to have a bigger influence to change more lives. And it's crazy because when that shift happens, what ends up occurring is, without even realizing it, you exponentially increase your lifestyle without even realizing it. Because it's the focus. When you focus on you and you focus on having more stuff, there's always a part of you that's going to question it. There's always a part of you that's going to be like, come on, do I really deserve it? Because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, you can take the toughest person on the planet. At the end of the day, we all are about helping people. We're all about loving and helping others. And if we fight it, that's when we get conflict. But when we realize it, that's when everything starts to shift. That's when everything starts to change. So I know I'm throwing a lot of nuggets at you here, and it's probably a little off the air in review, but I want to give you just as much information to help you, because here's the reality. To be a world-class CISO is not about the technical components. I know sometimes when I go off on these little tangents, I'll often have people text me. A few goes, dude, what are you doing? You're not talking about the CISO. I'm like, yes, I am. But here's the reality. I care about you and I love you so much that the way you really care about somebody is you do something very interesting. They come to you because they think they want something. Whenever somebody comes to you with what they think they want, there's always a hidden need that they're afraid to tell you because we're scared of being judged or somebody looking at us or being vulnerable. So just think about that for a minute. Whenever you're coming to somebody saying, hey, I want your help, or we might even say, I need your help. Whatever we're asking for help with is really something we think will help us solve the real need, but we're not comfortable enough to tell them what that real need is. If you want to be world-class, and you do this with your executives, and this is why I'm so effective, when I work with CEOs and COOs, I listen to them. But I listen to them at a deeper level. Not what they're telling me, but what they're not telling me. So when I go and talk with a CEO, and they're like, Eric, we really need you to come in and do. That's what they're saying they want. But there's always an underlying need that if you can do both, you become magical. And hopefully you see what I'm doing here. I'm letting you behind the curtain, right, into the Wizard of Oz, right? So what I do here on my Life of a CISO is, what you want is the skill set to be a CISO. What you need is to think differently about who you are. To think differently about who you are and how you show up. Because here's the reality. If you are still thinking of yourself as a security engineer, I could give you all the skills to being a CISO, but if you believe that you're not, you won't be a CISO. Or you might be a CISO and struggle. But if I can get you to think and believe that you're a CISO, where when you look in the mirror and no one's around and you're telling yourself the truth, you're like, I got this. You truly, there's no doubt, zero doubt. Zero doubt. You go, I know, regardless of whether I've done it before, regardless of the titles, I know without a shadow of a doubt that I am a CISO. If I can get that installed in you, everything else happens automatically. The other stuff becomes easy. I can give you the skills and the roadmap and everything else, and it becomes trivial at that point. But you have to believe it. So all these things I'm giving you are direct ways, because I can go in and I can just say, you need to believe you're a CISO. But if you don't, you could be like, okay, Eric, thanks. That wasn't helpful. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you different ways and tools and methods and techniques to get you to that point. It's a process. It's a process that takes time, takes energy, and takes effort. That's why the folks that have been with me and listened to me for years, they sit there and they have extraordinary results. They have extraordinary results because they apply and they have patience and timing. Now, yes, as I said in the beginning, seasons. But there are things you can do to speed up the process. And that's why I always sort of give you two options, where, of course, you have the one option, which I'm going to keep doing because I love you and care about you, the free stuff, which is sort of the slower, where you get 30 minutes of me every week. Or there's the accelerated version where we can do some coaching and spend more time and sort of accelerate and compact. Once again, I'm not one of those folks that sort of in your face, buy now, but I just want to let you know there's options. So if you want to move a little quicker, a little faster, and you want to invest in yourself, I hope you know you can reach out to me. I hope you know you can reach out to me anytime. Ecole, E-C-O-L-E at secure-anchor.com, and love to see if there's a way we can accelerate and move things quicker. Otherwise, I'll accept you where you're at and I'll keep giving you information and knowledge. So what we're really talking about as we sort of CISO year-end review is really getting clear that you are a chief officer with a focus on information security. So one of the most important things you need to do as we finish up, and you could be listening to this anytime, you don't have to do this at the end of the year. The only benefit of doing it at the end of the year, at the beginning of a new year, is everyone expects it. Like if you go in to your CEO or COO in August and you're like, listen, I care about the company. I know there's been some disconnect. I know I'm probably not the CISO ideally that you wanted, and I'd like to reset and redefine. You probably catch them a little off. They'll be like, okay, where did this come from? I agree with you, but you caught them a little off guard, and you might have to like prep the soil a little more. But the cool part is, if you sort of come to them December, Jan, Feb, they're sort of expecting it, right? They know that everyone's sort of so like, okay, yeah, we sort of knew this is a great time, and it sort of takes the pressure off. And now what you're doing is you're letting the energy, the negative energy between you, get released without having to blame. Because if you do it in August, there's that awkward moment where they know and you know that it's not really working. But nobody wants to point the finger either direction, right? Nobody wants to say it's your fault. Nobody wants to say it's my fault. So it's this awkwardness of getting the energy. But if you do it around the new year, then, hey, we can blame the new year. Hey, listen, it's new year, new objective, new goals, right? We're all doing changes and New Year's resolutions and all that stuff. And we have an excuse where we both can release that energy and be able to move on. Because I'll let you know another little trick. Another little trick is you can't forget the past, but you can address it. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is when two people have a disagreement or a misunderstanding and they say, hey, can we pretend that never happened? And both parties say, great. I will tell you, disaster. Whoop, whoop. I mean, the warning lights should go off, red lights alert. I mean, here's why. It did happen. And the energy is there, and it's always going to be there until you release it. You need to release and let it go. So, no. So here's a slight tweak. And remember, words have so much power, my friends. World-class CISOs are so careful with their words. If you listen to a world-class chief officer, the best of the best, if you find like the best CEOs or COOs, they use their words very carefully. Probably one of the best, most unconventional chief officers, Steve Jobs. Right? Totally unconventional, but he's probably one of the best, and here's why. He is very clear and deliberate with his words. If you listen to him speak, if you listen to his speeches, there is no ambiguity. There is no misunderstanding, and he is crystal clear. One of his criticisms is he's often too direct and he offends people. But here's the reality. Some people need to be offended. Some people need to hear the truth. And the problem with many chief officers is we're so ambiguous to let ourselves off the hook that it then creates so much confusion. The clearer and more articulate we are, the more effective we can be. So just with your other execs, be clear. It's not working, and be very specific on here's what we need to do to make it work. One of the most famous examples with Steve Jobs that I love is, I think it was the first release of the iPhone. Steve Jobs wanted to release it on a certain date. I don't know the date, so I'll just sort of put it in there, but the fundamental components of the story is the same. So he wanted to release on January 15th. And one of the problems that Apple had, this was right after Steve Jobs took back control, they threw him out and he came back, was that they let deadlines slip. They always let deadlines slip. So they lost consumer confidence. Apple said we're going to release something, and the joke was it's going to be 3 months later. They're never going to meet their release dates. So Steve is like, we have to build confidence. And we build confidence by honoring our word. If we said we're releasing on January 15th, we're releasing. But they were so custom that they said, listen, we're close, but we need a few more weeks. So instead of January 15th, can we release it January 30th? And Steve looked at him and said, listen, if you only need 2 weeks, there's no reason you can't get it done on the 15th. You're just playing the old culture. You're just scared and afraid, and you're just looking for excuses to postpone it. There's no reason. If you can get it done on the 30th, you can get it done on the 15th. I'm not going to let you run behind the excuses anymore. And then he said, and just to make it crystal clear, if you don't meet the January 15th date, you're all fired. Oh, and by the way, if you meet the January 15th date, you get a bonus. So it's not just negative, but positive. And he walks out of the room. Now you could say, direct, because it's not how many people operate, people say that that wasn't appropriate, but it was extremely appropriate. He was clear. He gave it a reason. He called them out, and he made it crystal clear. You will release on the 15th, or this will happen. And they knew he was serious. They knew that if they did it on the 16th or the 17th, none of them had jobs. So that's how you need to start thinking. That's who you need to become. That's how chief officers operate. So you need to start redefining your job. You need to start redefining who you are and you need to become. And then here's one of the favorite exercises I love doing. Go and research what a world-class chief officer focused on information security is. I want you to go in and create the ultimate CISO. Now, we're pure fictional here. Just for a moment, pure fictional. And I'm giving you some of the tricks that I do with my one-on-one coaching or my group coaching. But you can do this on your own if you want. Is just start researching, and I want you to define the ultimate Chief Information Security Officer. And get as detailed as you can. What do they look like? How do they show up? How do they dress? How do they talk? How do they think? What are the skills? What is their mindset? How do they approach their day, their week, their month? And the cool part is, you want to do it on your own. Yeah, lots of information out there. You want my help? I have a ton of data. So I can help you do it a little quicker, or you can do it independently. But I want you to start redefining, and here's the trick I'm giving you, is it's so much easier to help others than it is to help ourselves. Because when we help others, we're coming from a position of love. When we help ourselves, we're coming from a position of judgment. Isn't that weird? Like why do we do that? That doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's what we do. So if you pretend you're helping somebody else, if you pretend you're creating the ultimate CISO for somebody else other than you, there's no judgment. It's love and compassion. Now, I think you know where I'm going, but once again, just play it out. So you're creating as much specificity as you want. Focus on the areas that you think are most important and just really create with as much specificity and conciseness what the ultimate CISO is. Now, I'll let you in on tricks. You need to do a lot of revisions and a lot of passing. Because here's the reality. The way most people, when they're brainstorming, we're doing sort of these fictional exercises, in the beginning, most people struggle. Because they're afraid to be wrong. They're afraid to put things down in writing. So it might take you a little bit. But then something happens. There comes a point in the creative process where it's like the valve opens and then all of a sudden, like it's just flowing so quick, you almost can't keep up. You can't, like, you're like, whoa, slow down. Like you're typing so much so quick. And then you have so much information. Then the hard part, consolidating down into a page. Because that's ultimately, if you go in and you look at really, really good architects, what can a really good architect do? Get the entire vision down, accurate, correct, functionally sound, on a single page. When you look at a blueprint of a house, at some level it seems so simple. Right? Oh, here's the rooms, here's the layout, here's the dimensions. Right? It seems so simple and beautiful, and you can imagine it. But what you don't realize is every detail on stress, load, and factors had to be considered. When you design a room, you can't just say, I want to make it 12 by 15. You have to go and say, what's the load structure? What's the load balance? And you need to make sure the beams are correct. Because if the beams are not, somebody either fall through or be too heavy and then the house will collapse. I mean, there's so much detail into designing a house that we just forget about because we don't need to worry about it. But really brilliant people are able to put the detail in at a level of abstraction that you don't even realize it's there. And that's what you need to get to in this design. Ultimately, and it could take days, weeks, months, or even longer, depending on where you're at in the process, but you want to ultimately get it down to a one page. Very clear, very concise, where when you look at it, you're like, yes, this is beautiful. But if at any point you want to drill down, the details are there. You're just not showing the details on the page, like a brilliant architecture. Then, and I think you know where I'm going as we sort of wrap up this episode, then that becomes your blueprint. Then you go and say, okay, honestly now, where am I currently at? And this is where having friends or outside people help you do an honest assessment. But notice the order is important. You have to do the ideal state first. One of the mistakes that so many people do when they're doing these planning exercises with careers or becoming a world-class chief information security officer or chief officer focused on information security is they focus on where they're at first. Well, if you focus on where you're at first, then when you design where you want to go, your mind starts going, is that too hard? Is that too difficult? And you question yourself. But if you put that aside and you focus on where you want to go with no limits, then where you are, now, yes, it might be a longer road than you thought, but now you're getting clarity, purpose, and focus. So as you finish up the year, it's not as much external. What do you need to do externally? It's a lot more, what do you need to do internally, and who do you need to become so you can step in and become that world-class chief officer with a focus on information security.